Thank you all for coming today. Yesterday, at approximately 7:25 p.m., Milwaukee Police Department officers responded to a report of fight outside of Rufus King High School on the 4100 block of North 19th Street. While officers were en route, the fight was upgraded to a shooting. Upon arrivals, officers did not locate any shooting victims at the scene. The initial investigation was conducted by officers revealed that there was a fight between two females outside of the school during a girls' high school basketball game. As a large group gathered to watch this fight, an adult male suspect discharged a firearm multiple times, which resulted in injuries to 5 people. At approximately 7:45 p.m., 3 female victims, aged 15, 16, and 17, arrived at a local hospital reporting non-fatal injuries sustained from the gunfire. At approximately 10 p.m., 2 additional female victims, ages 15 and 20, arrived at a different local hospital, also reporting non-fatal injuries resulting from the gunfire. It was determined all 5 victims were injured when shots were fired during the incident outside of Rufus King High School. Their involvement in the initial fight and subsequent shooting is still under investigation. At this time, it's believed that no one inside the school was injured as a result of the gunfire. It's also believed that this argument stemmed from a social media dispute. At this time, there's no information to suggest that there is an active threat to any of our schools. We continue to seek a known adult male suspect in connection to the shooting, as well as additional suspects that are involved in the initial fight. Anyone with any information is asked to contact Milwaukee Police Department at 414-935-7360, or to remain anonymous, contact Crime Stoppers at 414-224-TIPS or P3-TIPS-ACT. Thank you, and I'd like to now bring up Mayor Johnson for a few words.
Well, thank you very much, Chief. Today, I started the day by going to the Northwest Side to celebrate the grand opening of a business. The city, in partnership with entrepreneurs, a family who is also residents of the city, made a tremendous investment and opened up a new classy restaurant at 74th and Hampton, Annox Cafe. And it's going to be a great addition to the northwest side of the city. So that's how we started the day. And that's how I intended to continue in the day, promoting economic development, promoting jobs, creating opportunities for the people who live here in the city of Milwaukee. But then my attention had to be turned to this. Rufus King is one of our community's bright spots. It really is. It has been for certainly as long as I can remember. It's a high-achieving school surrounded by a neighborhood that really cares. Students come from all over the city of Milwaukee to attend Rufus King High School, and if I'm correct, and I think that I am, there are even students from outside of the city of Milwaukee that decide to come into the city, come into Milwaukee Public Schools to attend Rufus King High School because it's that good of a school. And last night, yet again, over what seems to be, I mean, just a silly, stupid dispute on Facebook, on social media. Guns entered the foray, and people were shot. Kids in our city were shot over Facebook, social media. And the worst part about it is that while those kids were shot, it was the adults in their lives that brought the guns into the equation. Like, we can't adults are supposed to be the role models. They're supposed to set the example, not escalate the problem. They're not supposed to do that. So that's very disappointing. We want to make Milwaukee stronger, and we've invested in that family's economic success over the Northwest Side, over at Annox Cafe. And we want to talk about economic development, the entrepreneurial spirit, and supporting families, supporting jobs in the city. But here we are again, talking about this tidal wave of gun violence that just has been overwhelming our city. So let's just address it here. Under my leadership, we've funded 200 police officer positions to stop the slide in the number of cops on the street, but that simply just is not enough. We have not only a violence crisis, but we have a financial one. And we need the state's partnership so that we can continue to fund my comprehensive plan to reduce violence, which is balanced. It's got enforcement. It means more cops on the street. But it's not just that, though. There's community intervention. There's violence prevention. And there's neighborhood healing. We can't do all of those things unless we have the partnerships that I've been talking about, building new relationships with the capital in order to get the resources to make those investments to keep our community safe. And I desperately want to build those relationships and have those partnerships so that we can address these very important public safety issues that we have here in the city. With that, I will pass it over to Superintendent of Milwaukee Public Schools, Dr. Keith Posler.
Thank you to Chief Norman, Mayor Johnson. First of all, my heart goes out to the victims, and I wish each one of them a speedy recovery. Anytime an incident like this happens, it's a time to keep in mind the safety and overall well-being of our students, which is our top priority in the Milwaukee Public Schools. It is also time for us to take a closer look at safety measures that we have in place. Some of those steps that we already have in place include pre-sale of tickets so that we know who's coming, scanning all spectators upon entry, and a trained event staff that has security protocol in place, and we were fully staffed on last night. And making sure that staff are reacting appropriately to the situation at hand, and there was no problem inside of the building. And I want to commend the safety staff, the event staff, for the job that was rendered on last night to make sure everyone that was inside of that building was safe. But we will also let it be known that we will continue to cooperate with law enforcement and to work to ensure a safe environment both during school and after with extracurricular activities. Children, the community as a whole, anyone that walks in the doors of the Milwaukee Public Schools, we want to make sure that we can ensure their safety from the time they arrive and until they leave. Thank you.
Good morning. I'm Arnita Holloman, the Director of the City of Milwaukee Office of Violence Prevention. Our hearts go out to the young victims of gun violence last night, and we're tired. And I know I've said this before, but I mean it, and we all mean it. And we are concerned that adults, like Mayor Johnson mentioned, who should be there to protect and to care for children and to model for them the right things to do when there is conflict, that did not happen last night. And unfortunately, in many incidents, it doesn't happen. And so while we are working to prevent violence by working with young people in schools, 414 Life is there in about 10 schools that they're working with. OVP is doing our work to prevent violence. We need not just to work with young people, but we need adults to do their part to decrease, to mitigate, to interrupt conflict, and to teach young people the best way forward. And if you as an adult need that assistance, we will also help you learn the conflict mediation skills that are needed as well. But at the end of the day, everyone has to do something. And I know we keep saying this. We're all saying it. The mayor has said it. Alderpersons have said it. I've said it. The chief has said it. And at this point, either you help us in this fight to prevent and interrupt violence, or you are a bystander while blood is shed. And so what we need to do is make sure that that doesn't happen again, and especially not for young people. A child should be able to be anywhere in this city and not be worried about being harmed, being violated, and definitely not being shot by an adult. And so, again, I know you may hear my frustration, but it is really the anger that I feel, and I know my team feels, and that the 414 Life feels every time we show up at a scene, every time we hear a family crying out because they've lost a family member. And so we are thankful for the support that we have, for every last one of you that have heard the plea and stepped up, and we're asking for the rest of you to do the same. Thank you.
I'm almost afraid to come to the mic after that. Thank you, Director Holloman. I really do appreciate that. I really do. Any questions?
Is there any leads on these people that you know that you're looking for? You said an adult male and then other people that were involved with that initial fight?
Yes, there is. We're actively looking for them right now.
How many of them, of the victims, were students? Were they students at Rufus, Washington? Were they at the game? And what social media was it? Snapchat, Twitter, Facebook?
So that's still under investigation. I mean, we're still working with MPS to figure out in regards to who went to where, if they're even our students. I know this was a school MPS sponsored game, but you all know that there are still individuals come outside the school. So that's still under investigation, and in regards to the social media platform, it's still under investigation in regards to just, again, as we are trying to get to the bottom of this. I do understand from preliminary statements, though, that it was not anything, if any reasons to have a conflict, to rise to the level of, physical fighting, and definitely not a firearm being used.
But you don't know if they were Rufus King students?
At this time, no.
Do you know how many shots were fired?
Still trying to find out in regards to from investigation, so that's still part of the investigation, figuring out how many were discharged at the time.
We know that the 5 victims were involved in a fight. Was the fight, are we talking dozens of people outside fighting? Are we talking, do you know?
It's hard to say, but again, preliminary, it sounded like it was a large crowd. I hate to give any type of approximations, especially when you have video and whatnot, but I heard that there was a number of bystanders looking. I mean, as Director Holloman just said, we are standing by seeing this particular type of behavior going without any particular type of challenge or intervention. And granted, we have to understand you want to be safe. We don't want to just get into the fray and now put yourself into harm. But to have adults respond to a situation like this and use that level of violence, it's unacceptable. Unacceptable on all levels. And I have this message to those adults who don't understand what that means. Accountability is real. This is not going to be tolerated in this city. Absolutely not. Especially when you're involving the behaviors of our young ones, and there is nothing but lack of responsibility, immaturity. The Milwaukee Police Department is not going to stand for it. The residents are not going to stand for it. And I stand by the residents on this one.
Do you have any reason to believe the shooter is related to any of the victims?
At this time, it's still under investigation.
The only other thing I would ask is obviously security at the game and everything. Did they come outside once the fight started?
I'm not aware of all. I don't want to speak on behalf of the MPS. I know that we're working together to figure out what happened and how this all had unfolded, but I know that we do have a robust relationship in regards to working in tandem of safety for the schools and for the neighborhood.
We'll take one more question.
Mayor, you seem to be supportive of police maybe should come back to schools. We know the contract is no more. Does this highlight a reason why we should bring officers back to monitor the after-school activities?
I have been very clear on my position on this. Before even this incident occurred on school grounds, when last year we had individuals that decided to take vehicles and drive them on school grounds. And you look at those school grounds today, even the high school closest to where I live, Marshall High School, and you've got these spokes in the ground. You've got, these boulders that are there, creating this visual that I don't think that any of us want to see. And so, I think that a proper partnership between the Milwaukee Police Department and Milwaukee Public Schools is just. And I think that it could help to address some of the issues that we saw last year, and also possibly could have helped to address the issue that we saw last night.
Mayor, a quick one on gun legislation being introduced in Madison today, and in general, any help from the state lawmakers on guns? Do you anticipate anything this year?
Their session is going to wrap up relatively soon here. So I don't know if we will get any legislation that's introduced and passed in this session. Obviously, there's time before the next session starts where we'll be able to have conversations with legislators, but I want them to know that this is real, and what happens in Madison and the laws that are passed in Madison, especially around guns, they have a huge impact on urban areas, especially in the city of Milwaukee, where we've got these legacy issues of economic challenges, the density of the population, poverty, all in one space. And then to allow for the ability for people to have in my opinion, too easy access to guns, too easy access to firearms, and they're going to use those, some of them, for what end up being deadly activities, is unacceptable to me. And so we need to work with the state in order to address that issue, and I'm going to be working to do that.
Thank you.